The sleepover that continued forever. It was the evening of the sleepover, one that ought to have been very much like some other. A lot of 17-year-olds hanging out, sneaking bites, perhaps watching a frightening film, and passing out far beyond 12 p.m. But that is not the way in which it went. I never figured a sleepover could demolish my life. I'll begin all along. My closest companion, Luke, had been arranging this for some time. An all-folks sleepover at his place to celebrate completing secondary school. His folks were away for the end of the week, so we had the house to ourselves, and we intended to take full advantage of it. There were 6 of us: me, Mike, Luke, Jake, David, Kevin, and Ryan. We were your ordinary secondary school folks, affectionate, however, with our own characters. Luke was the clown, consistently the focal point of consideration. Kevin was the muscle head, Ryan the peaceful one, and Jake and David, the gamer pair. We appeared at Luke's place soon after nightfall. It was one of those huge, old houses that made you can't help thinking about how much history was pressed behind those walls. Luke generally said it was spooky, however he never truly implied it. I think the house was creaky, and in some cases things disappeared, yet it was likely from his younger sibling meddling with him. By 10 p.m., we were in all-out party mode. Luke had taken a few loggers from his father's reserve, and after a couple, we were feeling sufficiently courageous to turn on a blood and gore flick. We picked the custom, a strong decision for getting the adrenaline siphoning. Halfway through the film, Luke stopped it to go to the washroom. Most of us spread across the lounge, chuckling and talking. However, at that point, we saw something unusual. The way to the storm cellar, something we hadn't even pondered the entire evening, was open. Not a solitary one of us opened it. Luke had consistently said they kept it locked in light of the fact that the steps were self-destructing. I thought it was some stupid trick, Luke attempting to crack us out, so I called him out when he returned. "Fella, assuming that you're attempting to screw with us, it's not working." He looked befuddled. "What are you discussing?" "The storm cellar entryway. It's open." We as a whole gazed at him. His face went pale. "Nah, man, no doubt. It's constantly locked." That got all of us feeling uncomfortable. Jake stood up, half flippantly, half anxiously. "We should look at it then, at that point." I wish we hadn't. Luke got an electric lamp, and we as a whole delayed the slightest bit before leisurely strolling towards the entryway. The storm cellar was one of those profound, totally dark sorts, and even with the spotlight, you were unable to see a lot. The main thing I saw was the smell. It wasn't like shape or residue, similar to you'd anticipate from an old cellar. It was something metallic, practically like rusted iron. Kevin was quick to speak. "This spot makes me extremely uncomfortable." We made a couple of additional strides in, the spotlight pillars skipping off the stone walls. Luke drove the way. However, his typical certainty was no more. There was something different down there, something we shouldn't have seen. In the furthest corner of the storm cellar, behind a heap of old furnishings, was an entryway. In addition to any entryway, however, one that didn't fit. It was awkward, practically like somebody had quite recently stuck it there and overlooked it. The wood looked more up to date than anything more in the cellar, and it had this odd image cut into it, a circle with an X cut through the center. Ryan, the tranquil one, made some noise. "That shouldn't be here, right?" We as a whole shook our heads, uncertain of what to think about it. Luke attempted to dismiss it. "Should be some old remodel thing. How about we simply head back up?" Yet, something attracted us, similar to we had to realize what was behind that entryway. David was the person who ventured forward first. "Perhaps it's a mystery room or something like that." "Definitely a mystery murder room," Kevin mumbled. However, we as a whole disregarded him. David got the handle and pulled. The entryway squeaked open, uncovering a restricted flight of stairs, driving further down. We as a whole traded uncomfortable looks. However, nobody said anything. Interest prevailed upon good judgment. We dropped, single record, the electric lamp scarcely enlightening the means. The air developed colder the more deeply we went. I began to lament descending there, yet turning around felt unthinkable. At the lower part of the steps, we wound up in another room. This one was totally not quite the same as the remainder of the house. The walls were smooth, excessively smooth, and there were images carved into the stone. I perceived a similar circle with the X. However, this time, there were a greater amount of them, covering every last bit of the walls. Furthermore, in the focal point of the room, there was a solitary seat. In any case, it wasn't unfilled. There was a man staying there. Still, we froze. Nobody could talk, could move. The electric lamp glimmered, creating shaded areas that appeared to extend unnaturally across the room. Luke was quick to end the quietness, his voice temperamental. "Hello, who are you?" No reaction. The man didn't jerk. Jake, attempting to be courageous, ventured forward. "Is this a joke of some sort?" The man stayed still. That is the point at which we saw something alarming. His skin, there was something wrong with it. It was pale, practically clear, similar to he'd been down there for quite a long time. Also, his eyes, they weren't shut, yet they weren't open by the same token. They were smooth, inert. Before any of us could respond, the entryway at the highest point of the steps forcefully closed. The sound reverberated through the storm cellar, sending us into a furor. Kevin hurried to the steps, beating on the entryway. "Luke, open it! Open the damn entryway!" Be that as it may, Luke was comparably terrified. I didn't close it. No doubt, that is the point at which the man in the seat moved. Gradually, inconceivably leisurely, he turned his head toward us. His mouth extended into the most twisted grin I'd at any point seen, and in a voice that wasn't his, he murmured, "You shouldn't have come here." Alarm dominated. We mixed for the steps, yet the entryway wouldn't move. The air developed thick, and the images on the walls started to faintly sparkle. The man, on the off chance that you might call him that, stood up, his joints breaking with each development. Jake was quick to shout, and that was the point at which the lights went out. The spotlight flashed once, 2 times, and afterward kicked the bucket totally. We were dove into murkiness, with only our battered breaths and the sound of strides moving toward us. I don't recall a lot after that. Everything turned into a haze of fear and disarray. I recollect the sensation of cold hands snatching at me, Luke's voice shouting for help, and afterward, quiet. At the point when I awakened, it was light. I was back in Luke's lounge room, spread out on the sofa. Briefly, I thought it had all been a bad dream. However, at that point, I saw the others. They were by and large present, with the exception of one. Jake was gone. We looked through the house, the yard, all over, yet there was no indication of him. We even returned to the cellar, yet the entryway with the unusual image was gone. Similar to it had never been there in any case. Luke attempted to call the police. However, they didn't trust us. They said Jake most likely took off. In any case, we knew reality. Something in that storm cellar took him, and it might have taken any of us. We at no point ever talked about it in the future. Not actually. The 5 of us floated separated after that evening. Yet, at times, late around evening time, I can in any case hear Jake's voice calling out from the dimness, asking for help. Also, at times, when I shut my eyes, I see that entryway once more, the one that ought to